Well, hello everyone. Welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. Betty and I, and all of you who are with us, find our way traveling through the central part of Norway. And of course, you realize on the last adventure, I think we left Oslo, and so now we're heading toward the central part, and eventually we're going to wind up over in Bergen, which is the second largest city in Norway.
At one time, it was the largest.
Is that right? It was, huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's probably because it was so important there on the seacoast, I suspect. And you know, Betty, you were talking a little bit just before we went on the air about the oil that was discovered there.
Yeah, it's really amazing. You can't always take the word of geologists. They did a lot of surveying there, and the continental shelf they just thought was too old there in Norway to produce anything. But then Holland got some gas discovery, and so they relocated, or they redid some real, they did some more surveying, and sure enough, there's oil.
And now that's been very, very good, of course, for the Norwegian economy. And
2 million barrels a day. That ain't bad.
That's right. It's not bad at all. Well, we're traveling through the countryside, and of course, you can see some of the little villages that we're going through. And we're coming up to one over here. And this is not a stave church, but I think that does look pretty much just like a regular little old Norwegian church.
Not only does it look like a church, it is a church, this building to the right. It is not, though, a stave church. A stave church, I should talk a little about that. Stave churches are the first churches that were built in Scandinavia. We used to have them all over Scandinavia, but only Norway has any left. They have burnt down or disintegrated in the other Scandinavian countries, Sweden and Denmark. But in Norway they have about 27 left. Unfortunately, a few less than they had 10 years ago, because we've had a satanistic movement that have burnt down some of our beautiful stave churches, unfortunately. But there are still about 27 left, and these stave churches were built by the first Christians in Scandinavia in about year 1100. From year 1000 to 1100 was when we built these first churches. We built them to look like the stone churches in Europe, but we couldn't build them in stone as we didn't have that much stone. Some places, the wealthier villages or towns could, but most had to build in timber. And they had the knowledge of building Viking temples and Viking ships, so they used a bit of their know-how to build these wooden churches. They took the tree trunks and put them in they took the tree trunks and put in a square. Then they put up pillars. And on top of these 4 pillars, he would put another 4 logs and build then the roof above that. And the roof would have wooden shingles to look like the tile roofs in Europe, but it would be all wood. Between the pillars, the tree trunks, they would put walls made of wood, and then they would make a veranda all the way around the church, because people would come from all over to the village church. They would come from the farms out in the countryside, and every Sunday they'd come in, and they would have to stand and wait sometimes before the sermon started. These sermons could take several hours. They would all be in Latin. There would be no light except the candlelight from the altar. Of course, in that time it was Catholic service, so it was all in Latin. They couldn't understand a word, but they were supposed to concentrate on the priest's sermon, and therefore no windows to distract them. And they would stand up. There were no seats originally. They'd have to stand up through the whole service. Gol had a very beautiful stave church that was moved into the museum in Oslo, but in the recent years they have rebuilt a new copy of the church. You can go down and see that. We're driving through Gol Center here. This is where we're stopping for lunch. This is the main street in Gol. A Chinese restaurant here on the left. If you want to have Chinese for lunch, you have to walk a little, but otherwise we're going right into the city center to Gould's Hotel, where there's a cafeteria, a little place with hamburgers and stuff, light lunches. If you don't want anything else but maybe a piece of fruit or an ice cream, I can suggest that you go down to the Gould Stave Church, the newly erected Gould Stave Church. It's down by the water, the nice little seats down there.
Well, this is really amazing to me that satanic movement had burnt down a lot of these churches. That's really too bad.
Yeah, how accurate do you think that is, Marv?
No, that was
it
pretty.
Really
yeah,
was true.
yeah, that's noted there. Yeah.
I really see an infusion in our culture right now of this satanic movement, and it's very frightening to me that they are allowing it to have their religious ceremonies in the jails and
freedom
things.
of religion.
But I know. But how can you think of the worship of Satan as a religion?
Well, people have made it that for centuries,
very sad,
actually.
very
It's
sad.
too bad. Here we see that some of the crops in this person's yard were covered with some sort of a netting. I guess that's to keep the birds away.
I would think so, and they must be berries of some kind, because I
Probably.
don't think birds are really interested in beans and vegetables or something.
Maybe Norwegian birds are. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to go down and take a look at the Stavekirke. And
At the what, sir?
Stavekirke.
Oh, that was very good.
Is that okay?
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
I'll
You
practice that.
almost sound like that's your heritage.
Could be.
Yeah,
Could
how about
be.
that?
Anyway, there was a campgrounds here, campsites in a little stream right here. And this was the most amazing thing all over Norway. I mean, every time you look to your left or your right, there was either a stream, a river, a fjord, or a lake, and
But
they were
Marv,
all over the place.
you should never be surprised at that. This place was once filled with glaciers, and when the glaciers melt, they take the rocks and everything and move them down. And the residue then it makes little lakes, little ponds, little whatever,
Big
and
lakes.
waterfalls.
Yeah, lots of
And
them. Incredible. Anyway, here is the Stave Church, and this, of course, she said was a reproduction. But it's really quite beautiful. We're going to visit another one later on in this series as we go through Norway. But this one they had put up, and I think a lot of tourists probably come around this particular area.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see, as she stated, that the shingles or it's supposed to look like the tiles from the roofs. Of course, now the Christianity was brought from England, not England, I should say, brought from Europe, as it were, Central Europe up to Northern Europe. And, of course, the Norwegian Vikings and probably the Danish and the Swedish had visited those places, and they had seen the great churches and the great cathedrals that were in Central Europe. So, although they didn't build them the same way, they certainly did build them uniquely, didn't they?
they got their inspiration from that, wouldn't you say? Now, when she kept talking about stave churches, I was thinking she was saying state, S-T-A-T-E.
No,
and
although there is a state church
church.
there, right.
I realized after the fact, but as she was going on, and I thought, just to myself, state, S-T-A-T, yeah, what is the state? Is it a state religion? Well, we know that
they do have a state religion.
They do
That's
have
right.
a state
That's
religion,
right.
but all the churches could not have been state churches. So then I realized, stave. Do you know what it means?
Stave?
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
No, you
Probably.
don't.
I wonder if it means wooden church. I'm not sure. Anyway, there's a dragon head on that.
I wouldn't count on that.
What's that?
You
That is
said
wooden?
it wouldn't. No, I
I
wouldn't.
don't know. You wouldn't count.
Oh, Marv,
gotcha.
you
Okay.
are slipping. I'm really
Yeah, I
sorry.
know.
Or maybe it's me.
Listen, I want to tell you that Norway is ruled by a king, King Harald V, and he succeeded on the death of his father, who was King Olaf V, on January the 21st, 1991. And King Olaf V was a king who enjoyed being with his people. And every May 17th, Norway's Independence Day, which is a great big celebration day in Norway, the king and the royal family would stand for hours on the palace balcony in Oslo. And thousands of school children prayed past them to shout their hellos up to him, and then, of course, he waves back. And the monarchy is pretty much of a ceremonial situation, not doesn't
It's
have
a
much real
facade,
power.
huh?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that he does so command the military, though. I will say that. So that's got to be pretty important. But even on the street, countrymen greet the king simply by saying, "Hi, Your Majesty." And every year, Olaf received hundreds of people in special palace audiences, giving them opportunity to speak officially to their monarch.
Marv, isn't it wonderful that he can walk freely among the people? Now, there aren't very many countries that you can walk freely without all your bodyguards and your bulletproof machines or cars.
Your cars or
That really says something.
It really is. Well, Norway's a country that really takes the monarchy seriously, but not too seriously. Olaf didn't care for gilded cages or thrones. He often said that he preferred sailing and hiking and skiing to the trappings of royalty. And that's pretty neat, isn't it?
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Could you imagine Queen Elizabeth doing that?
Yeah, but you see, she wouldn't ever have the opportunity. The opportunity is here. This isn't a large country, and it's autonomous,
well, neither is
isn't
England.
it? No,
neither
but
is
look
England
at,
anymore.
but it did. Well, with you used Elizabeth as an example.
Yeah.
You couldn't use Elizabeth as an example in her England compared to what we were talking about here.
Well, Norway's
But he's a man of the people.
Yeah, he is a man of the people. That's right. And, I think that's great that you can go up. I mean, maybe he's going to go out and buy a newspaper or something. He'll go up and say, "Hi, Your Majesty, how you doing? Listen, I've got a problem here."
Yeah, I don't like the way you're running this government. Can you do something about it? Well, our taxes are too high.
Yeah, well, that's
for sure,
that
isn't
they
it?
probably
They
are.
probably
that's-
do tell him that.
That's going to be universal anyway. As we're traveling along, as you can see here now, we have left areas where there are a lot of trees, and we do get into these areas where it's a little bit more rocky. And I would say here, if it were close by here, where we'd just be up above the timberland. But I think, like Betty, you had mentioned before that you think so far north that sometimes trees just don't grow there.
No, it's just
Must
too
get-
cold.
Yeah.
They just get stunted if they do start to grow at all. They can't achieve their full height.
And you can see here, as you stated, that there is a glacier, by the way, nearby. But you can see what the glaciers have done here. You
I'm
can
of
see
the
all the
opinion,
rocks here.
I've been arguing with you about this. I think that all of these are glaciers. They just have not completed the melt. That is not fresh snow that's there. It is snow that's packed down. It's impacted.
But
and I feel then there will be
but a
more
glacier-
snow that'll come on it. And I took a lot of geology,
Yeah.
and I feel, well, anyway, but I would have to check with somebody more
no,
knowledgeable.
That is snow. Even though that's July, that is snow. Now there is a glacier that's not far from here, and of course, glacier is ice. And as we were traveling
What
through,
is snow?
well, snow's just it's not. It's not ice. Well, yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, but it's not.
It's just not hardened
It's not
like,
that, yeah.
like the glacier.
Yeah, it's not glacier.
See, I
glacier
put you
ice.
on the spot.
Yeah.
Not nice of
Okay.
me.
Anyway, the glacier's back up there somewhere in those hills where your fresh snow is, or maybe your old snow.
Now,
I
do
don't
you
know.
remember the Mendenhall Glacier in Alaska? That huge, tremendous
That one you
glacier
get right up to
that's
close to.
moving so fast, but there were other little glaciers around it because you could take a helicopter and fly up.
Right. Well, here too, the Norwegians and the Swedes as well, they like to really get out in the country and they like to hike, and so I imagine that you can probably find a trail that would go back up to one of the glaciers. That's one of the things too. The school children have opportunity in the summertime to go and stay on farms during the summer, or summer camps, I guess I should say. And during the season, a lot of American young people of Norwegian descent visit a place called Camp Norway, and that's a project of the Norwegian American Cultural Institute. And it gives them a chance to learn about their culture.
Oh, that's beautiful. Look at that.
Isn't it
that
beautiful?
lovely?
And that,
Yes.
see, now the glacier, if you could look real carefully, you could see that there are some little waterfalls there, but the glacier is back up there somewhere. But I didn't have enough time to go hike back up there. But
Oh,
this is
as if
as if I would probably
you
do
would.
it. Yeah.
Marv,
Wonder where the helicopter is, huh?
74% of the country are forests and woodlands. There's only 23% for other, and so 3% arable land.
Mm-hmm.
You often wonder, well, how do they grow things when they're so little?
I don't know. Are you ready for a song?
Sure.
Okay. Well, let's listen to
mean
this
you want
fella.
me to sing?
No. Let's listen
Oh.
to this guy.
My only son, come on, darling. Never I never know how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Stop now. Okay, here we go.
Now that is a lot of water coming down through that waterfall. A lot of water.
I'm thinking as I look at the scenery here, what a field day geologists would have here when you see the erosion that's taken place and the effects of the erosion, the magnificence of it, the power of the water.
Well, that's true, and fortunately, that water's fresh water. One of the things that some of the Norwegian foresters are very concerned about, and that is about acid rain that is getting in and doing some damage to the forest there. We saw that a few years back when we were in Germany and we were in the Black Forest, and they were very concerned about the acid rain there.
Now, where would it come from in this area?
Well, probably would sweep up, I would suspect. I don't know that it would probably sweep up from central part of Europe, probably the areas that are heavily industrialized, and or if the winds were maybe blowing from the other direction. Look at all of the problems that there were with Chernobyl, and of course that's not the acid rain, but that would be the radioactivity there, and of course that did sweep all over this area.
I agree with you there. I just think about this country so surrounded by water, like Bergen itself with 7 mountains, and so you wonder if it's all water then that comes from the sea. You would think it would be pretty pure, because that's what forms your rain as it
but evidently it's picking up all that other bad stuff that's there in the atmosphere. That these large smokestacks are poofing up one place another.
Not El Nino.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Betty, holidays are very important in Norway, and they have some really fantastic holidays. The 17th of May is a celebration, and that's the day that marks the signing of the Norwegian Constitution back in 1814. And we talked about before, the King of Norway, or the royal family there, and of course that's the day that they really parade out in front of the royal palace in Oslo, and they have parades and flags and all sorts of in the homes and out in the restaurant places. People are having great dinners that also mark that particular day, and children go out in the streets in every town throughout Norway and celebrate that. And there's a lot of dances and films and sports activities that go right on into the evening,
Marv, let's stop for here a minute and talk about this road. It was really exciting. I don't like to be up in that front seat, but she talked about how narrow the roads used to be. Well, they look pretty doggone narrow. This is a used to be road, right? I think so. Yeah. As our bus was coming down the hill here, all of the trucks, some of the motor cars had to pull over to the side, and we weren't on a huge bus. I think 48 people, something like that. But when you see how narrow it is, and then you see what's on the right, I mean, that's out and down, water, and you think, oh, come on, God, take care of us now.
Well, and our driver as well, yeah.
Oh, yes.
We had a great
We're always
great
very,
driver.
very careful, and they are really well instructed, they're well trained, and
have been over these roads many times.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more. I want to go back to holidays again.
All
okay?
right,
I like
sure.
holidays.
You like parties.
Well, yeah, and of course, in Scandinavian countries, a midsummer festival, or the festival St. John on June the 24th, still celebrated in Norway, much as it's been for hundreds and hundreds of years.
We have St. John here. It was the 24th of June. Also, in the Catholic tradition, we have a mass celebrated for St. John the Baptist. That is
right. That's who it is. That'd be the guy.
That's the guy.
That's
St. John.
the guy.
Well, we have other Johns.
But originally though, this particular feast was held in honor of the sun on that same day. So it's a good thing that St. John came along.
Well,
and had
St.
us
John
on
was the son of Elizabeth and Zacharias.
That's true. I guess he was. But anyway, when they celebrated it in the olden days before Christianity, supposedly on that date, the gates of the upper and the lower worlds were supposed to open at midsummer, and the supernatural beings walked the earth, and the trolls, and I'm still going to read my troll story one day.
Yeah.
And evil creatures threatened human beings who protected themselves with huge bonfires. Now, the tradition did change under Christianity, and the festival was given a new meaning, of course, in honor of St. John the Baptist. But some of the old ways still persist, because bonfires are still lighted on Midsummer Eve, and houses are decorated with birch boughs, symbolizing the new life that marks springtime and early summer. And then there's another one in July.
What's
Would
in
you have an idea?
What's in
what
July? I'd love you. It must, the 4th of
No,
July.
no,
Oh, I'm
not
so
Norway.
Can I have another try?
You're going to have another try. July 29th is named in honor of the patron saint of Norway, Saint Olaf.
Oh, well, of course. What else could it be but St. Olaf?
But Saint
huh?
Olaf, right. And the day commemorates the death of Olaf Haraldsson at the Battle of Stilstad near Trondheim.
I'm sorry, what?
No, I said it once. I'm not going to do it again. And that was in the year 1030. In Oslo, there are religious observances and fireworks and games. So, and every year the battle in which Olaf died has been reenacted. And King Olaf was supposed to have been a wise and a just ruler, but he didn't actually exhibit many saintly characteristics while he was alive. But of course, it must have been pretty difficult, for him to be saintly while on the throne, because his throne was being besieged from all areas all over the place. But he was made a saint after many miracles were reported by people, of course, after he died and when they visited his grave. So he became very, very prominent, and more prominent probably after the Reformation until the time of the independence of Norway. Now we are going to get on a ferry boat here, as you can see, and you saw that big line of cars, and their ferry boats running continually, because we just came to the end of the road. That was it. So we've got to get on a ferry boat and go across this lake, and then pick up the road on the other side.
Isn't that funny how the road just ends?
That's it.
They don't make bridges there.
Well, they are, though. Yeah, they
now?
are, yeah. And I think in our next episode we're going to see where they are building some bridges. But
What a shame.
it is, and it's like other places that we have had visited. The ferry boats are going to be a thing of the past, and it's kind of sad for those of us that like to really get on a boat and go across like that. But for the people that live in those particular areas, of course, it's going to be very nice for them.
Of course, it's economical. It has to be. It's fast. Like in San Francisco, it was very sad when the ferry boats were
left,
taken
right.
away. But oh, how practical! What would they have done today if they were still having the ferry boats instead of the bridges? Berkeley wouldn't have grown. Oakland wouldn't have been.
Yeah, but look at the good side. You wouldn't have the 5 o'clock traffic.
You are right.
So I don't know, but that's just progress, though, and progress, of course, is coming to every country that we see, and it's a little bit sad to see the passing of some things that have been there for a long time.
Now, Marv, on this particular shot that we were looking at, did you use your telescopic lens to get way back there, or was this what you could just see with the regular lens?
That's just what you can see with the regular lens. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably a little bit of magnification on that, I suspect. But and if the nice thing too, I noticed that on this particular trip that a lot of people kind of wised up a little bit and took their little binoculars, from home, which was really kind of nice, because especially if you want to, look real close at some of the waterfalls, and of course they were just everywhere. And I encourage people to do that.
I always take mine, but you know what happens? By the time I get focused in, what I want to see is gone. I'm not real good at that.
Well, you got to be kind of fast with that. You got to be kind of fast. But this was kind of leisurely, of course, going across this lake, and as you saw, we had been traveling for quite some time on the side of this lake. So this was a large one, and it's interesting to see up there on the hillsides. You will see some little settlements up there, little farmhouses. So the guys are having a good time. They're getting out of the bus and being on the ship there for a little bit, getting some fresh air.
Breathing that wonderful fresh air.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, really
invigorating.
Nice.
But I had a sweater.
Nice. But you have a sweater, right?
Yes.
Well, I would imagine that the fishing would be pretty good right there, which brings me to another subject that I like to talk about, and that's food. And most of Norway's food comes from, a lot of their food specialties, I should say, of course, come from the sea. And that's not too surprising, because Norway has 15,000 miles of coastline. 15,000 miles of coastline. Can you believe that? I mean, that is a lot of coastline, isn't it?
Yeah, but when you think of where I was going to say, oh, this is so smart of me. I was going to say, but when you think of where it's located, it has to have coastlines. Oh, my gosh.
Well, it does have.
One thing calls for the other. But,
yeah.
Well, I think that's why like especially a coastline of Bergen, why so many liked going there because of the coastlines
And when we get there, we're going to see probably that huge fish market that they have over there too, which goes around all year long, and that's a marvelous place to visit if it doesn't rain. However, it does rain probably almost every day in Bergen, but when we do get there, we'll have sunshine for a while. And here again, now there's some of that tillable land that you can see, Betty. And I don't know what the crop is there, whether it was wheat or oats, but that is very deep. It just sort of looks like a lawn there, doesn't it? But
yeah,
if you were to
good
get
golf
down,
course.
yeah, but if you were to get down in it, you're going to see that the crops there were growing, fairly high. So it's beautiful. But of course, everywhere you look, I think here is just really breathtaking, and I'm just showing you just a few shots, of course, here.
Now that's a postcard. That's really, he didn't really take that picture.
No, it's
he
not.
just
Look
put
at the
a
rain.
postcard
Look at the
there.
rain on the windshield.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the other nice thing. It would rain a little bit, and then it would clear up and go away, and then actually the rain might come back for a little bit, a few little sprinkles, whatever. So
well, with that many
very
mountains,
enjoyable.
you're bound to have rain pretty often.
Right. And as we mentioned before, a lot of the Norwegians like to do what we call trekking, or get out into the countryside and either go skiing or go backpacking or hiking or just spending some time, out in nature.
What do you call it when you put your skis on and you go walking in the skis?
Cross-country skiing.
Cross-country,
yeah.
that's it.
And that, of course, in Norway developed very early on, and that was very, very, and still is a very, very popular sport. But as you have noticed, as we do go along the countryside and we come into some of these villages, we will notice that there is some downhill skiing too. Some of the hills that are manicured, but some of these things are just too steep. Have a story about this water that we're going to talk about in our next show, and we'll do that, of course, in the next episode next week. But anyway, Betty, we should remind everybody that we do have a lot of trips that are coming up, and if people are interested in some of the trips that we do have, they should give you a call, because you've just put in, of course, some brand new trips and some real exciting things. So we don't have too much time to talk about that now, but if our viewers are interested in any of the trips that we do have coming up, we certainly do advise you to get in touch with Betty so she could mail you some information on it or give you information on the phone. Betty, let's give our phone number, shall we?
I'd be happy to. 488-7443.
That's right, 488-7443, and that's area code 209. So if you're interested in things that we have coming up, and Betty will be able to tell you about those, please give her a call, and she'll do that for you. Hey, it's time for us to say goodbye. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.